Hello and welcome back to the United Patriot Party's interviews with candidates from around the country. Uh, this opportunity we've got is with Mike Cargile in California. Um, I really already am rather smitten with this fella. Mr. Cargile, I'm going to open it up for you and let you just kind of introduce yourself and sort of give us a bio on you.
Sure. Well, my name is Mike Cargile, and our little campaign slogan is "Smile is Cargile." So I'm running in the 35th, which is in Southern California. And my opponent is a lady named Norma Torres. She is a baby killing Guatemalan communist. But let me tell you about my district first and see if you think it's as ridiculous as I do that she's actually the sitting representative. At one end of my district, now I'm just east of LA, and it spans from Pomona to Fontana. So it encompasses the cities of Pomona and Chino Hills, Montclair, Ontario, Fontana, a little Rancho Cucamonga for anybody who's been here in California. Now, this district, at one end of the district, and I can hear the cars today because they're racing. I have the Fairplex at Pomona, one of the best drag strips, if not the best drag strip in the country. NHRA is located here, and they open and close the season about 5 miles from my house. So when those top fuelers roll, actually, it'll rattle our dishes. And then at the other end of my district, I have the Auto Club Speedway, the NASCAR track in Fontana. So what kind of people like drag racing and NASCAR? And in between both of those, I have 4 churches that have 10,000 plus members each. So what kind of people go to church, like to go to NASCAR, and like to drag race? And you're telling me they voted for a Guatemalan communist? I don't think so. But that's the big problem out here is that California's elections are fraudulent. And I'm a plaintiff in a lawsuit that's at the Ninth Circuit right now. It's the only lawsuit in the state of California that will fix it. And when I say this is important, I can't overstate it. This is the tip of the spear, because California, people don't understand this. California is the head of the snake. Everything that's going wrong in the country right now started in California. Think about it. Where's the minority leader from? Kevin McCarthy, California. Where's the majority leader from? Nancy Pelosi, California. Who's the tiebreak in the Senate? Kamala Harris, California. Where all the laws that make up HR 1 and all these, the worst bills in the history of our country, everything's coming out of California. And people don't realize this. But the good news is we know where the head of the snake is. So if we can cut it off, we fix the whole country. And I believe my race is actually the key to California. It really is, because my opponent is the only person in Congress from Central America. And people say, well, that's great. No. That's the worst, because I think she's like the madam of Central America. I think she's Nancy Pelosi's hidden little tool to unlock human slavery, human trafficking, drugs, all that stuff that's coming on our southern border is because of my opponent. And if we can turn this race, we turn to California, because she's hated. I mean, the people of Central America cannot stand my opponent, Norma J. Torres. If you want to know who she is, a little bit more about her, you're welcome to go to normajtorres.com, because I was kind enough to buy her name for her and build her own little website so people can see who she really is.
Good move. Good move. Well, we had a rally here in North Carolina yesterday, and we had the leader of that particular county, Alamance County's GOP. He is a first generation Venezuelan immigrant. Um, let me back that up. He's not first generation. He is a Venezuelan immigrant himself. He watched
Right.
he watched his country go from a democracy to a dictatorship in his lifetime. And he watched his father be shot in front of him as a political representative. So on one hand, you've got somebody like Ms. Torres, who is advocating for the communist regimes. And then on the other side, you've got somebody that is terrified to see the United States fall victim to it. You know, we've got an opportunity with some of these folks that are firsthand representatives, are firsthand viewers of this, and they're saying, no, don't go down this road. But I'm like you, I
Right.
think these plants are in there to really fulfill the plan for a communist regime. Uh,
Absolutely. In fact, I am being attacked by the Republican Party as much or more than the Democratic Party. As I told you off before we started, I'm the only congressional candidate in the country who was unendorsed by the Republican Party for being too conservative. And I take a strident stand on things like the biblical definition of marriage and support of the nuclear family, anti this LGBTQ indoctrination of our children, and critical race theory. These are things that the Republican Party, believe it or not, is trying to embrace. They want to build this big tent that is fit for everybody. But if we don't stand on our traditions and our morals, we have no country. This is who we are. And if it's not about money. The economy is one thing, but what good is it when you're debauched and your country is corroding from within because you have no morals? And that's where we are right now. We had the greatest economy ever under President Trump, but it seems like it's collapsing on itself because we are not holding up the values and the traditions that made this country great. And I am a Christian, and I am stridently out there saying I'm a Christian, and you should be glad I'm a Christian. And I had people go, well, I'm an atheist, or I'm homosexual, I'm something like that. And I go, well, that doesn't matter. You should be glad that I'm a Christian because I understand the foundations of this country. I understand the Judeo-Christian God our founders were looking at when they said that all men were created equal. Well, created means you have to have a creator. And under that creator, we are all equal in front of him. But if you don't recognize the God that they were looking at when they crafted these foundational documents, you don't understand. Or it's even worse, you don't believe that we were created, so we're not equal, and that we don't enjoy things like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are values that we say come from God. So if you don't believe in God, then you don't believe we're equal or that we have these rights. That's why you should be thankful that I'm running for Congress. As a Christian, I understand this standard that I sit under, this biblical standard. That's my mandate. And that will allow me then to forcefully defend the Constitution and our foundational documents against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help me God. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And it's easy for people to think, and it's because of the media saturation that we've had, to demonize the Christian church now, to believe that no, Christians are anti everything. That's never been the case. There is a liberty born in belief and in faith, in the Christian faith, that you don't get in any other aspect of this world. And to believe that everybody has an intrinsic value is that's what gives that concept of all men created equal. That is a beautiful thing, and I really appreciate you saying that.
Well, that's
How
who I am.
exactly?
Go ahead.
That's why we're trying to get away from ballot down voting. We're trying to get away from, if they've got an R by their name, we're going to vote for them. That's not the case anymore. We're going to have to look at the person now. We're going to have to look at the content of character. And, is this somebody that truly does align with me? And if I don't know them, I'm not voting for them. And when I get to know people like you, then, I would love to have somebody like you, in even though you're in California, I want you there participating in the lawmaking for this nation. That's the type of character that I want.
You're exactly right. You hit on two foundational things here. This is a federal level office. So people go, oh, I wish I was in your district. I could support you. I go, well, everything done in Congress has a national impact. So if you live in the United States, you're kind of in my district. So you better wake up, and you got to get guys like me in office, because the legislation that comes out of Congress will affect you in North Carolina and Tennessee and Texas and everywhere else. So we have to sort of think of this big picture wise, first and foremost. But you have to have people. It's funny you said what you did. I had a guy come up to me last cycle, and he said, "You're going to have to work for my vote." And I thought, what the heck does that mean? You want me to do your lawn? How do I work? I'm running for Congress, right? But then I started thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? I do that to people too, because what he was basically saying was, you're going to have to conform to what I think is right, and therefore I will vote for you. And that is exactly wrong. So what I did is I completely, long story short, after George Soros attacked me over and over last cycle, it was me, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert. But I realized then that we're doing this all wrong. Because in politics, they say the less you put out, the less ammunition you give your opponent. And I thought, well, that's stupid. I want people to know exactly who I am, how I think, why I think, and what I'm going to think about. And that gave me this idea. I'm not running for you to, like most politicians, they put their finger in the wind and they go, what do my constituents care about? I know who I am. I know my values. What you need to know is your values compared to mine, because my values aren't going to change. I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to vote my values. Now you have to decide as the voter, do your values align with mine? Then you can vote for me or you vote for my opponent. But I'm not changing who I am. So you can be rock solid when an issue comes up in Congress. You know how Mike Cargile is going to vote because you know who he is. And I go on the stump and I say, I'm pro God, I'm pro family, I'm pro life, I'm pro jobs, and I'm pro police and military, and always America first. That's who I am. Now you have to decide, are you against any of those, or do those also describe you? And then you vote for me.
My goodness, man, I'm moving to California just to vote for you. What what got you? How long have you been in the political world, and what got you there? What brought you to that point of saying that I want to serve the people?
Well, I've been in this a total of 2 years. I'm a Christian filmmaker.
Hmm.
I had no desire to get involved in politics. Politics is ugly, but Hollywood's even uglier. So that really didn't deter me. But my opponent was running unopposed. Nobody would run against her, and the Republican Party here had no answer for her. And I just, I wanted to bring my skill set behind somebody. I can make commercials. I can do all kinds of stuff to make someone look really big. And no one would step up. And I finally just said to my wife, it's killing me. I got this, this burning in my chest. And she said, well, then you've got to run, and we decided together that that's all I would do. The only way to win this fight is 24/7. And I got the greatest support team in the world here. And her name is Nan. And I'm so blessed, man. I really am. I am so blessed. And it's been just a new adventure completely, but it's at the right time, right place. I had no idea I would get into a race, as we're about to lose the country. And the forces that are amassing around my race are international. So let me just say that, because I took a stand for the president of El Salvador, a guy named Nayib Bukele. And he's suddenly all over the place. He was the first nation to use Bitcoin as a national currency. But what I didn't realize is how pivotal this would be right now. See, we've got this whole thing happening in Ukraine, right? This Biden debacle. That's a distraction. So we're pretending like we're going to keep the Russians and we're going to protect the Ukrainians from communism, right? But what we're doing in El Salvador is we're supporting communism. And our greatest ally in Central America is El Salvador. And we are literally taking money that should be going to El Salvador's government, and we're putting it in these George Soros backed NGOs designed to take down his government. We're supporting communism right here at home. And people are not aware of this. You know, we've got Venezuela, we've got Cuba, all talking to Putin. Hey, bring your stuff over here. So we might poke the bear in the Ukraine, but we're going to feel his claws right out the back door.
Yep.
And it's
I
bad.
agree. I agree. We've watched a slow and steady march um, towards communism for a long, long time. Most of which was done, behind closed doors. And now, even quote unquote free societies like what we're watching in Canada, full on dictatorship is starting to unfold in front of us. And when you disrupt and dismantle a free and fair election system, that is one of the surefire signs that you've lost control completely. I am still
let me say this. You say you lost control. I think they have gained ultimate control, because in my race in California, I prove that it's the Republican Party and the Democratic Party working together. We call them the uniparty, to rig the elections. And they've been doing what you've seen in the rest of the country with the mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting and all that stuff. That stuff originated here in California. Both parties have been working towards this. And let me say this, the number one enemy politically of the United States right now is the Republican Party, because we know who the Democratic Party is. It's easy to box them into a corner. They have no ideas. They have no solutions. It's the Judas that betrays us. It's the Judas for 30 pieces of silver will turn around and betray you. And that's who the Republican Party is. That is the number one enemy right now of the United States politically. But our greatest enemy, our number one enemy, is the mainstream media. So I love these truckers. I love what they're doing, but they're doing it in the wrong place. They should turn those trucks around, and they should put a ring around ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, HBO. They should put a ring that none of those employees can come into work. You watch how things change then.
Yeah.
If you shut down their mouthpiece, now we can control the narrative. And man, that's just my 2 cents. But I think we're fighting this in the wrong place, because Washington, D.C. is just full of puppets. You go to New York, you shut down ABC, you shut down Fox, you shut them all down. Now we've got a free chance to communicate and not be censored, and we can get the truth out.
That's one of the biggest things that we've got going against us right now is the power of the pen truly is mightier than the sword. And at the end of the day, we don't even have access to a crayon. It can be taken away. It can be, censorship can happen at every single level now. And just to clarify, when I said that we've lost control, I meant we the people. That we the people have lost control of a free and fair election. And we call them the mirror party here. You see one, you see the other. And I agree with you 100% that the Republican Party they've left behind anything that would even resemble what the average person stands for in this country. They play into the media, they play into the globalist hands, and that's the way to stay in power. It's unreal.
You're exactly right. Both parties.
Yep.
But Rona McDaniels, the one that runs the RNC, raised $300 million for election integrity and spent zero in Arizona and has spent zero in California. And her buddy Rick Grinnell is out there raising all kinds of money for election integrity. I have no idea what they're spending it on. I just got another email from him, another fundraising email. So the Republican Party is using election integrity, Donald Trump stole an election, all this stuff to raise all this money, and they're spending none of it on true election integrity.
Exactly.
What they are doing is funding candidates that were against Donald Trump, like David Valadao, Young Kim out here, people like that. That's who they're spending the money on, but they're not trying to safeguard our elections. And if you think about it, why would they? Because they're in office, right?
Exactly.
The system worked for them. Why would they want to fix it? And this should be the litmus test that is applied to all these candidates you talk to. Do you think that we have fair elections, or are they fraudulent? Was the presidential election fair, or was it fraudulent? Because if they think it's fair, we need to keep them away from the reins of power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree with you anymore. And that brings me to my next question for you, just to kind of get your input on it. You know, what is your take on adherence to the Constitution and the constitutional principles? What's your take on on adherence to the Constitution?
Well, it is not a living, breathing document. I'm a strict constitutionalist, and I think we have to get back not only to our constitutional principles, but there are some of these bills or these amendments that have been brought to the Constitution that we need to relook. You know, the idea of a federal payroll tax may not have worked out the way we thought. You know, there's some constitutional amendments we need to really revisit and maybe remove that I think have brought a lot of what we're experiencing now to the forefront. And we need to rethink the stuff that we did over the last century. And that's just one of them. But it's funny, the lawsuit I'm involved with uses 3 parts of the Constitution for election integrity. We use the first part, Article 1, Section 4, which says, and everybody learned this with the Trump election, that elections are conducted by state legislatures and state legislatures only. The governor can't change elections, and the Supreme Court, only the state legislature. But nobody reads the next sentence, which says that the Congress has power at any time by law to make or alter these state regulations. So the things that Nancy Pelosi is trying to do are completely constitutional. She's just doing the wrong thing. But Congress has the authority to tell every state, if you're conducting a federal election, all voters must supply a valid photo ID. That is completely within the purview of Congress to say things like that, or that elections only take place on one day. You can't have mail-in ballots 30 days before and then count them for the next 30 days after. In California, we have a 60-day election window. We don't have election day now. And it's what is coming your way, Greg, is horrific. Because in California, if you're here illegally and you go get a driver's license, which you can, you're automatically enrolled to vote, but you're illegal. You're not a US citizen. So unless you walk to the other side of the counter and you opt out, you will get a ballot. And nobody tells you can't vote.
I did not know that.
Here's the thing that's so horrific. Yes, it's coming your way, though. That's the thing. Everything in California is coming to you.
Yes, sir.
Trust me. And so these people are being used because right now, coming into the United States is a misdemeanor offense. That's all. But if they vote, that's a felony and they can never become a citizen. And we had a lady contact our office. She said she'd done everything. She paid thousands and thousands of dollars, years in the making, trying to become a US citizen. And at the last minute, they said, oh no, you voted in the last 2 elections. You cannot become a citizen of the United States. She cried for 3 straight days because someone was getting her ballot and turning it in, and she had no idea this was occurring.
Well, see,
So, I
that's
mean,
absolutely
this
heartbreaking.
is headed towards, oh, it's headed to everybody. And this is just one facet. This last cycle, they literally, the Secretary of State, under the guise of COVID, said, you know what? If you're at home, why don't you print your own ballot in, fill it up, print it on your computer, mail it in, and we'll count it.
Unreal. It's unreal. I know
It's called remote access vote by mail.
we had, you know, stories here in North Carolina of workers in nursing homes who were helping patients fill out their ballots. You know, those things are just, it's unreal. It's unreal. So the fraud that actually happens with the legitimate ballots is bad enough. And then you add on top
Right.
of that, fraudulent ballots being created. There's, you know, there is a way to get control of that again. And we're going to have to do it. I've said it a
And it's
thousand
going to
times.
have to come through. It's going to have to come through people like me. We've
Exactly.
got to get people like me in Congress who will
Hmm.
vote to safeguard our election system. Well, another example, in our lawsuit, we're using Article 4, Section 4, which is they call the guarantee clause. And so the United States is supposed to guarantee that we're free from foreign invasion, right? But everyone thinks
Hmm.
that occurs at the shoreline. But what if we have laws that allow the Chinese to float 30 million ballots into the system and we're not checking? Then those laws are on their face unconstitutional because they don't protect us from foreign invasion. It doesn't say where, it just says foreign invasion. And so we're attacking about 22 laws of the state of California that enable election fraud. And well, it's going to be really, really big news in the next couple of months. Right now, there's a media blackout on this lawsuit because both parties hate what we're doing. But we're at the Ninth Circuit. So we're going to get a 3-judge panel. And if they remand us back to the district level, you saw what was happening in Arizona with the forensic audit.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
we're going to be doing that in 13 counties simultaneously in California. So it'll be Arizona times 13.
I love
If
it.
the Ninth Circuit sides against us, we go to the Supreme Court. But the great news here is the Supreme Court has already adjudicated a large chunk of our suit because during the summer, Arizona brought a case that the Supreme Court took up about ballot harvesting. And the Supreme Court looked at ballot harvesting and said, that's a bad deal. It's okay for you to make that illegal. What people don't realize is my co-plaintiff, the Election Integrity Project California, supplied that data to the Supreme Court using 10 years of California data to prove that ballot harvesting is bad and should be illegal. So that's a large chunk of our case. So if we get out of the Ninth and go to the Supreme Court, they already know how they're going to see our case, or at least a large chunk of it. So it's a win-win. So they're terrified right now. Both political parties are terrified.
Absolutely. I'm going to switch gears just a touch. One of the things that it's near and dear to my heart, but I'm sure it's near and dear to most people's heart. You know, I consider you touched on it very briefly, the income tax. You know, it has become extremely excessive. You know, people are losing somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of their income to taxes. Um, I believe that there needs to be an immediate overhaul of that. Um, what are your ideas on that? How would you handle taxation?
Well, I've always been in favor of something that resembles like a fair tax or flat tax, something in that. But really, we need to get, like I said, when we were constitutionally, we need to relook the whole idea of a federal income tax. Because what used to happen was the states would pay to the federal government for things like the military and infrastructure and things like that. And then you could see the hands of these crooks getting in. Oh no, let's have a federal income tax. But what that did is it took away the safeguard of the states saying, why are we paying for this? I'm Texas, I'm North Carolina, I'm Louisiana. Why are you using our state money there's no checks and balances now. So they get the money directly from the taxpayer and they spend it however they want, because nobody is asking them, why are you doing this? And our founders had put the states in that position to ask those very questions. Why are we spending this money? How are we spending this money? Is this really necessary? Why are you paying so much for that? But now nobody's doing that. And that's why we are where we are with our federal deficit and this massive, massive debt that our kids and grandkids and their great grandkids aren't going to be. Something's going to happen. Something bad has got to happen. We can't sustain this. They are out of control. But whenever that occurs, we need to relook the whole process. And this whole federal tax or federal income tax is wrong. And I also want to abolish the, capital gains. I'm the biggest no tax guy. There's an old saying, that which governs least governs best.
There you go.
I want the boot of Washington, D.C. off my neck, and I want their hands out of my pocket.
And, it's actually gotten so inverted now that since the states receive so much federal money for various programs, the states have to acquiesce to the Fed's will in order to receive the monies that came from their own people, so their own labor, their own efficiency. That's what's really so backwards about where we've gotten to. If workers are producing in a state and all of that money goes to the top and then comes back down, then the state has no choice but to agree. That I'm a big fan of the fair tax program, a sales tax based taxation system, so that people can control the amount of taxes that they pay in. If you want to be taxed less, buy less. It's pretty simple. So I think we can agree that there needs to be a change, but it's a huge change to make. And
it becomes simpler when you take the Fed out of it.
Right.
Your taxes, your sales tax is all county and state related. You can see where your money's going.
Exactly.
Let the state pay for the federal debts, the federal infrastructure, the military, those sorts of things. And then we need to downsize our federal government, cut it in half.
Oh, yes. We'll go ahead and touch on that. One of the UPP's wish list items, if you will, is a balanced budget amendment. And
sure.
If you've got in your household, if you spend more than you take in, you go broke. It's basic math, and we've got a government that can't quite grasp that. Spend less than you make, or make more than you spend, one or the other. And at this point, how would you feel about, in Congress, pushing forward a balanced budget amendment?
Absolutely. I'd be the first one to sign it. I'm also the first one. There was a press release a few months ago. I'm the first U.S. candidate in the country to pledge a term limits, just the same. A balanced budget, balance it. And this is not a career. This is something I want to do to serve my country, get it out of this rut, and then move on.
Exactly. And that is, that's the second of our wish list items is a term limits amendment, to see that people don't turn this into a career. We look at Biden now, 42 years in the Senate, and his presidency is a continuation of it. Nothing. There's nothing to show for 40 years worth of paychecks, 40 years worth of medical coverage, 40 years worth of all the perks that come along with being a senator for the United States. We can't continue to pay people for nothing. No company, again, this is kind of like, if you break it down to something you can recognize, no company can continue to pay an employee to do nothing for 42 years. That's impressive to get by with. I mean, there are some
Well,
things
he's
that are
done
hard.
stuff. None of it's good
Yeah.
though.
Right. That's what I was going to say. A lot of what he was involved with, I'm not cool with. So
Yeah.
it's impressive that we've got these guys, call them what you want, swamp creatures, whatever you want to call them. At the end of the day, they're basically worthless employees, and making sure that we have an out for that has to happen at some point. Vote the name you know. Most of the time, people get reelected just because somebody knows their name, and that's
Right.
a scary point. A scary point for us to be in as well. Let's
I'm
go
like
to.
Mike Rowe in that one. No, Mike Rowe's he kind of runs. You know who he is, Mr.
Oh
Dirty
yeah.
Jobs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I like his take on it was, because everyone says, oh, you have to vote, you have to vote. No, you have a right to vote. But if you don't know what you're voting for, don't vote.
Yes.
Because your bad vote may cancel out a good one because you haven't done the time and the due diligence to figure out what you're voting for.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to start doing, these interviews with you guys, folks that aren't. It's a struggle for you to get that mainstream airtime. We want to get to know you. My little saying is, I will vote for a gravel on the side of the road before I'll vote for another establishment candidate. I'm not going to vote for these people when I don't know them, when I don't know what they actually stand for anymore. It'll never happen again. So, getting to
Amen.
know who we're actually working with it's way more important than I thought for, 40 plus years. The decisions that you guys that you are going to be making when you're in office, those decisions directly affect me. More so if you were in North Carolina, but just the same, like you said earlier, it's still going to happen. It's still going to affect my life even here. The things that you do there. So
Absolutely.
I think getting your message out to people is what is going to be the difference between maybe a lot of people just making a silly decision like voting, ballot down voting, and actually getting to know who they're working with. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. Listen, let's talk about, and we kind of touched on it real brief, but one of the other problems that we see is for the last 20, 30 years now, we've been expecting, we've had people that have promised it. Trump tried, but border security. We know that there is a massive problem coming from the southern border. How would you go about dealing with that?
Well, I touched on it earlier. Everyone needs to get behind me in this race because my opponent is the one who's keeping the door open. Norma Torres is the only representative from Central America, and she is a strident open borders person. Well, what does that mean? Let me tell you what's been going on. All right. And now you'll start to connect some of the dots. Let's use Guatemala. MS-13, there's some cartels down there. What they do is they take women, and the women go to a family's house and they say, look, if you give me your children, I can get them an education and a job in the United States, and they'll have a better life. Well, it's a woman. You tend to trust women more than some, hairy guy. So the parents will give them the children. The children are taken then to the United States. Along the way, they are raped, they're molested, all kinds of horrific things happen to them. They come to this country. And I know this because we had about a couple thousand of them right behind that Fairplex I was telling you about, the drag strip. Well, they put a temporary shelter there for thousands and thousands of unaccompanied minors within the eyes of my opponent. So she could see what's going on with the children she's bringing up. Then they lowered the necessary requirements to get one of these children. So we have no idea. Are these children going into slavery? Are they going into human trafficking? Or, because we have these massive illegal pot grows here in California, and they're using child labor. They're slaves. But what they're telling the kids is, when your uncle shows up, you don't say anything, because we know where your family lives. So you will go with that person and you will do what you're told. And I don't know if they're winding up on the streets and human trafficking. We don't know. But my opponent is the one that's literally holding the door open for this to occur. So you want to know how to fix it? First, get me in office, get her out of office. Then immediately we have got to finish that southern. Trump calls it his Great Wall. Looks like a giant fence to me, but in either way, it's big. It's beautiful. It, marks the southern border, and it's really hard to get across, so you have to use our ports of entry. And then from that point, we don't have time, but I got the best immigration program in the nation once that occurs. But everything's predicated on us shutting that door at the back door so that they can't come through. Because I'm not so worried about people from Mexico and Central America, South America. It's people from Iran. It's people from Egypt. It's people that know how to put on suicide vests and come across our southern border unchecked. We have no idea what evil has been visited on us, because they're staying hidden right now. But we do know that Joe Biden gave them $90 billion worth of weapons and equipment in Afghanistan. We do know that. So we know they're probably well armed. What did they bring to the United States? They've had months and months via the Chinese to get that stuff here and bring it in. I have no idea. God help us, though, when we do find out.
I can't agree with you more. I know that some of the last reports that I heard, there is a huge influx of Chinese, and Middle Eastern, and even African folks coming in from Brazil, and coming all the way up and right across our southern border. And we don't know what type of folks we're letting in.
No.
These can be some terrible, terrible people. I don't think any of us are against immigration. I've yet to meet anybody that says, no, don't let anybody in the country ever again. We're all staunchly against illegal immigration and uncontrolled immigration. We want to make sure that the people that we're bringing in are going to be beneficial to us. First of all, beneficial to the nation, that this nation is going to be a benefit to them, and that they're not going to, do damage to the citizens that are here. I think
Amen.
that border is
I couldn't agree more.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Cargile,
Trump was right, though. We have to secure that border first.
I believe so. Good borders make good neighbors, correct?
Right. But here's what no one says. The greatest security measure we could deploy at our southern border would be a prosperous and safe Mexico and a prosperous and safe Central America. Then nobody wants to come across the border. I meet so many people that love their countries, that we have helped decimate their countries, and they're up here to try and find a better life for their families. But if we did the right thing and we helped those nations, we need something that marks our southern border, but it wouldn't be nearly as important as it is right now if they had no reason to come across.
Exactly. I know I have met folks in this country illegally, and not all of them are here because they think things are going to be great and wonderful and perfect, and they're here because they need to be. They're here because if they didn't make that journey to find work here, their families would be, completely destitute. Their families would be starving. And when you talk to
Right.
somebody in that scenario, how do you say no? You shouldn't be here. Uh, you know, but if I agree with you
Right.
completely, if you've got if those people had those same opportunities at home, I don't think they would have any desire to travel here.
No, who wants to give their kids away? Nobody. Who wants to, see that, like you just said, your family's starving, you need an income. And look, I look at everything first and foremost as a Christian. So I
Mhm.
think, well, treat others the way I would want to be treated. Love your neighbor as yourself. And like you just said, I can't fault anyone for seeking a better life in the United States, especially, and here's the thing that most of my, Republican counterparts don't understand, especially when our head of state asks them to come here. When Barack Obama and Joe Biden say, come to the United States, how do you fault someone for taking them up on their offer?
You can't. You can't. You absolutely can't. That
Right.
that's uh, invited in, and our, you know, a couple of administrations at least set up agencies to help bring them in and immediately put them on government assistance as much as possible. Uh, they're padding the roles. They're padding the voter roles in all reality, creating a
Well,
dependent
the,
state.
the, the ultimate irony would be that all of these people from our southern border, Mexico, Central America, what if they all turn out to be conservative and wake up and all vote Republican?
That would be
Because
well,
I tell you what, the Hispanic community is conservative.
yep. Most of the immigrants that I've ever met here, uh, they don't they don't want to be they don't want to be on a government dole. They want to work and be left alone to raise their families. So
Right.
that does not align with what I feel like our government currently wants. I'm like you. It would
Right.
be great if those guys stepped up, those men and women stepped up when as they become legal and they say, no, no, I'm not voting for that. That would be phenomenal.
I've never met a Latino father or Hispanic father who says, I want a grown man running around the restroom with my wife and daughter.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Mr. Cargile, I really appreciate you coming on with us and answering some questions. I really appreciate getting to know you. You are a phenomenal candidate. You are somebody that I can get behind all day long, man. You are awesome. I'm going to give you the final
Why,
word
thank you.
here, and I want you to let everybody know exactly how they can get in contact with you, what kind of support and help you need, and we'll end it with that.
I appreciate this so much. I really do. And I'm humbled and honored that I can appear here with you. If you want to go to my website, it's Cargile for Congress, and that's Cargile, Cargile, FOR for Congress.com. And I meant every word I said today. And I don't approach any of this lightly. We're in a battle for the life of the country, but it truly is a battle of good and evil, light and dark. And we have got to pick sides now, or we're about to lose the United States. So I would appreciate any sort of help you can give. I do believe the key is California, and I do believe my race in the 35th is the key to California. And I am working hard. I really am. I think I've got a couple 1-2 punches set up that neither party are gonna see coming, but I can't give it all away now. But listen, God bless you, and I thank all of you who are watching this for your time and your attention.
Fantastic. Mr. Cargile, you are awesome. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, hello, you flag waving, freedom loving patriots. My name is Greg Gibson, and I want to thank you for joining the United Patriot Party here on YouTube. And I want to give you some more ways to connect. You can visit our website at uppnc.com. You can join us on the Telegram chat at United_Patriot Party. That's all one word. And you can find us on Instagram at Patriot Party NC. Now listen, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And I really am honored to stand together with you guys against tyranny as we fight for freedom, for ourselves and for the generations to come.